Yeah, hi, Lenny and all, all of you guys there. I got to know Mark in Peru, where I'm from, and we travel a lot in the country along with Lenny. One of the things that impacted me the most about Mark is one of the things, there were many, but the passion that he had for the things he did, such as music and the birds, which is where I mostly knew him. Um, I remember many instances, but the one I really recall is when we went to look for a little rinky bird called the russet-billed spinetail. This is in the mountains of central Peru, pretty dry place back then in the season. Um, I recall that this little bird lived high in the mountaintop, and it took about 5 hours just to get there. And we did try for the bird 2 days in a row, and we couldn't find it. And the third day, that when we had decided to just bag it and grab this up and go to a different bird, um, Tomas Baki, the other guy who was with me at the time, or with us at the time, and we saw the bird. So we went up to the mountain during the second day, and we saw the bird, and it was just a couple hundred yards towards one direction, which we all missed the previous days. So we thought we were so tired, and we were ready to go, and we went down to the base camp, and there was Mark and Lenny, and we said we brought the news that we actually saw this fine tail, and we thought there's no way Mark and Lenny, they would want to stay one more day and tried for the bird next day, and we were so wrong. They uh, they were all gang ho for the next morning, and we had the help of horses and mules, I believe, back then. And we went out to the site, and we saw the bird, and we actually got that bird. But my recollection is that I was so tired about that, about the whole third day in such conditions, that I was ready to go and move on. Uh, and Mark said, "There's no way we're leaving without seeing that bird." So we got, like I said, help, and we went all the way up. But that's just one instance that Mark was so passionate. It's just the whole talk. His conversations were fascinating. Um, within There was a team. It was Mark and Lenny, and they worked on the most obscure and rare birds of South America that they wanted to see. Some of these birds were not seen for many decades, years, and in fact some of them were not have not seen in live. They were specimens, and they were known to exist, but they were never seen before. They had not been seen before. So they kind of keyed on those birds, and going after those birds, and going to places where they were collected, or first seen at some point in sometime 5 to 70 years ago. That was a challenge, but the work that they did before in preparation for these trips was just amazing. I remember seeing the the uh, the notebooks that they took to the field on each species. It was this fat, and then many pages and recordings and details and phone calls, and but just the conversation about the birds that we were going after was fascinating. And just talking to Mark, he would we would mix birds and music, and every time he brought out music into the conversation, it was just it was in a different zone. I mean, the guy was talking about music. I didn't understand music as much as obviously he did, but just the passion was amazing. And after that, after a while, Mark and Lenny were in Peru for chasing birds for a while, and then they moved off to different countries. But Mark and I kept in touch quite a bit. In fact, we would talk on the phone for hours. So I lived vicariously through Mark and his adventures for years to come after the time we traveled in Peru. Um, so I knew of all the birds they were chasing, all the countries they were going, and all the people they were meeting, and they he didn't have enough words to describe the people, the country that they went to, and especially the guides. the bird guides and friends later that they met along the way. Uh, but yeah, that was who he was. He had such a big heart, and there was never a word of you know of back thrashing people or bad mouthing people. It was just yes, it's a huge accolades, and sometimes people who I knew from before or from different instances, um, and I probably some people I would not have described as well as profusely loving as Mark would have. But yeah, that was who he was. I mean, he fell in love with the places and with people. He loved what he did and many things along the way. Um, One of the things that I credit myself with is having convinced Mark to go to Machu Picchu in Peru. Um, Lenny and Mark went to Machu Picchu, I mean to Cusco and to Peru multiple times, and to Cusco, which is the city that you go first before you go to Machu Picchu, and they had never been to Machu Picchu. So this trip, just Mark came by himself, and we were looking for a few birds in the region, and we had to go to Cusco. Um, so he never thought of, even that day, even on that trip, he never thought of going to Machu Picchu because, Machu Picchu, being Machu Picchu, everybody goes to Peru to see Machu Picchu. It wasn't on his list. It wasn't on his itinerary. Um, so I kept saying, how come you've been to Peru so many times and you have not been to Machu Picchu? Well, there's anything there for me to see. I said, there's Machu Picchu. You're in Peru, you have to see Machu Picchu. Uh, and lo and behold, there was a three burst actually. As I distinctively remember, was the Sclaver Tyrannolet, hooded tinamou, and Inca wrens. Neither of which was very rare, but they were a sure thing to have in Machu Picchu. In other words, it was just the right elevation, the right place to see them, and it wasn't very hard to see them. So this was a chance, or my chance, to convince Mark to go to Machu Picchu, and we went to Machu Picchu. Uh, uh, that morning, it was an unforgettable one for me and for Mark. Machu Picchu, the city itself, which is located high up in the mountain, it was so foggy, and there was a thick mist that it was so thick from below that people kept saying, well, I don't think it's even worth going up right now because it's so cloudy, so misty. So we went anyway. So we went up to a point where somehow the mist started to burn up real fast, and it started to drop below, to drop from the city, from Machu Picchu itself down to the valleys. Such a special moment. We went up there, and as we got to the point we were going to, the whole thing cleared up, and there was Machu Picchu. And I recall Mark in a sort of ecstasy. I mean, he saw the whole thing, Machu Picchu, and the surrounding landscapes, and he couldn't contain himself. He said, I distinctively remember, this is amazing. This is just, I can't believe this. This is beautiful. And we talk about that moment for years on our, phone conversations that lasted for very long. Um, yeah, it was just there are so many memories about Mark, and every time I remember and we talk about with friends about Mark Sokol is just amazing. One of the things that impressed me too is they started, Mark and Lenny started to go to South America to see birds. Basically, they love to see every single bird in South America, but over time that desire, I believe, and I'm not sure of this. I'm just I'm saying what I thought it was, or what happened. They were going after so many rare birds that they they people started to ask them, what about this or that bird? So they became a source of knowledge. They had been to many places and seen so many birds that nobody had seen in many years, that they became authorities basically on certain birds. They knew things about those birds that nobody else did. Excuse me, and they recorded, they took pictures and recordings, and all of a sudden they became somebody that who people look up to learn about certain birds. And that, I guess, that I believe added to their passion, to Mark's passion, and Lenny's passion too, to go back to South America and go after this obscure and rare birds um, to see. And that fueled their desire to go back to South America and different countries and go after, even the more obscure and rare birds. That was amazing. Um, and we had, going to those places and going to such a grueling conditions sometimes, it brings along difficult moments. I recall instances, this one instance where we ended up yelling at each other, and that was pretty disturbing at the time, and I thought that the trip was over there, right there. Uh, but lo and behold, just a few hours later, we were drinking beer and talking about what we went through. Um, so yeah, it was amazing times with Mark Sokol. Um, I mean, he was so. Again, I've said I don't know how many times I've said this, but he lived with passion. He lived a wonderful life. He went for what he loved to do, and he did it in such a, probably too passionate in many ways. He We kind of knew this could happen due to his the things he likes to do, and yeah, and that goes along with living with passion. We see often, movie stars and musicians that yes, get into things that could be detrimental to them, and there's no way to stop that. There's just they are quite special people in some ways. They just live the moment, live life full, live every minute, live every second, and there's no turn around, and there's no stop to that. Um, and that was Mark Sokol. Uh, we all lament the fact that he left us so soon. But again, he lived with passion, and wherever he is, I'm sure he is living the same way. He's looking over us probably. It's just, with the same passion he did when he was with us. Um, I'll miss Mark Sokol. He was a influential friend to me for many years. Wherever he is, I love you, man.